alabanza al Buda Shakyamuni. El que no la tenga a la mano la puede escuchar y los que lo sepan pues la puedan repetir después de mí. Maestro, destructor de enemigos, has sido Buda completa y perfectamente despierto, dotado con sabiduría y conducta ejemplar, ido al gozo, timonero que guía a los seres ordinarios que aún deben ser domados, ser supremo, maestro de todos los dioses y los hombres, Buda, destructor de enemigos, glorioso y victorioso ser Shakyamuni, ante ti me postro y a ti voy por refugio. Maestro, destructor de enemigos, has sido Buda completa y perfectamente despierto, dotado con sabiduría y conducta ejemplar, ido al gozo, timonero que guía a los seres ordinarios que aún deben ser domados, ser supremo, maestro de todos los dioses y los hombres, Buda, destructor de enemigos, glorioso y victorioso ser Shakyamuni, ante ti me postro y a ti voy por refugio. Ahora el Sutra del Corazón de la Perfección de la Sabiduría. Así lo oí. Una vez el bendito estaba residiendo en Rayagrilla, en la montaña llamada Pico del Buitre, junto a una gran asamblea de monjes y una gran asamblea de bodhisattvas. En ese momento el bendito entró al samadhi que expresa el Dharma, llamado iluminación profunda, y al mismo tiempo el noble Avalokiteshvara, el bodhisattva Mahasattva, mientras practicaba la profunda perfección de la sabiduría, vio lo siguiente. Vio que los 5 skandhas son de la naturaleza del vacío. Entonces, por el poder del Buda, el venerable Shariputra le preguntó al noble Avalokiteshvara, el bodhisattva Mahasattva, cómo debe entrenar un hijo o una hija de familia noble que quiere practicar la profunda perfección de la sabiduría. Entonces el noble Avalokiteshvara, el bodhisattva Mahasattva, le contestó al venerable Shariputra, oh Shariputra, un hijo o una hija de familia noble que debe a perfección de la sabiduría debe practicar así, viendo lo siguiente, que los 5 skandhas son de la naturaleza del vacío. La forma es el vacío también es la forma. El vacío no es otra cosa que la forma no es otra cosa que el vacío. De la misma manera, los sentimientos, las percepciones, las formaciones mentales y la conciencia también son el vacío. Por lo tanto, Shariputra, todos los dharmas son el vacío. No existen las características, no existe el nacimiento ni la cesación. No hay impureza y no hay pureza. No hay merma ni hay aumento. Por lo tanto, Shariputra, en el vacío no hay forma, sentimiento, percepción, formación mental ni conciencia. No hay ojos, oídos, nariz, lengua, cuerpo o mente. No hay apariencias, ni sonidos, ni olores, ni sabores, ni tacto, ni dharmas. No hay dhatu de los ojos y hacia dhatu de la mente y la conciencia. No hay ignorancia ni fin de la ignorancia hasta la vejez y la muerte. No hay fin de la vejez y de la muerte. No hay sufrimiento ni origen del sufrimiento. No hay cesación del sufrimiento, ni sendero, ni sabiduría, ni logros, ni ausencia de logro. Tanto Shariputra, ya que los bodhisattvas no tienen logros, moran en la profunda perfección de la sabiduría. Como no hay oscuración en la mente, no hay tampoco temor. Trascienden lo falso y alcanzan el nirvana total. Todos los budas de los 3 tiempos, a través de la práctica de la perfección de la sabiduría, despiertan completamente a la iluminación insuperable, verdadera y total. Por lo tanto, el gran mantra de la profunda perfección de la sabiduría, el mantra de la gran percepción, el mantra insuperable, el mantra inigualado, el mantra que calma todo sufrimiento, debe ser conocido como la verdad, ya que no contiene falsedad. El mantra de la profunda perfección de la sabiduría es Tayata gate gate para samgate bodhisoha. 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 Tayata gate gate para gate para samgate bodhisoha. Tayata gate gate para gate para samgate bodhisoha. Tayata gate gate para gate para samgate bodhisoha. Por lo tanto, Shariputra, el Bodhisattva Mahasattva debe entrenarse en la profunda perfección de la sabiduría. Entonces el bendito salió del Sanami y elogió al noble Avalokiteshvara, el Bodhisattva Mahasattva, diciendo: bien dicho, así es, oh hijo de noble familia, así es. Se debe practicar la profunda perfección de la sabiduría, así como has explicado, y todos los tathagatas se regocijarán. Cuando el bendito dijo estas palabras, el venerable Shariputra y el noble Avalokiteshvara, el Bodhisattva Mahasattva y toda la asamblea de dioses, humanos, asuras y gandharvas se regocijaron y alabaron las palabras del bendito. Hacemos la ofrenda de mandala breve. Esta tierra ungida con perfume y regada de flores, con el monte Meru, los 4 continentes, el sol y la luna, vista como una tierra pura de Buda, yo te ofrezco, que todos los seres puedan gozar de una tierra así. Oh sagrado y venerable Lama, desde las nubes de compasión que se forman en los cielos de tu sabiduría dharmakāyika, por favor derrame una lluvia del Dharma vasto y profundo, de acuerdo precisamente con las necesidades de los que serán adiestrados. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Nirjatayami. Tomamos refugio. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema, por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema, por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres. Voy por refugio hasta alcanzar la iluminación, al Buda, al Dharma y a la Asamblea Suprema, por los méritos que acumule practicando la generosidad y demás perfecciones que pueda obtener el estado de Buda para beneficiar a todos los seres.
Welcome back. I think everybody looks familiar here. Same people. So today and tomorrow we're going to talk about and meditate on compassion. We were working on refuge last weekend, and today we're going to take it a little bit farther and we'll do a meditation on compassion. So we always hear about Buddha, the compassionate teachings of Buddha, and Buddhism is all about compassion, and Christianity is really all about compassion, isn't it, too? And you think it's Easter week, isn't it? And it's the time when we celebrate the crucifixion and the rise, Christ rising from. Maybe he was dead, maybe he wasn't. Nobody knows for sure, but at least he was almost dead, or maybe he did die and came back. I don't know exactly, but anyway, that's the story. And I was thinking about it this morning, and I was thinking what extreme compassionate act that is, and it's actually more of an example of compassion in some ways than our Buddha sitting you know, because really he was in extreme pain, you know, in extreme pain, but yet not being in pain. You know, it was an incredible example, I think, more so of forgiveness, isn't it? It's about forgiveness. I was telling Veronica, you know, the other day, I've been having some personal problems in my life, you know, and it was funny because the thing that came to me was forgive them, you know, because people don't know what they do. So, how do we have real forgiveness? I think that's the question, isn't it? Because it's real forgiveness that brings compassion, isn't it? I mean, they're sort of the same thing, isn't it? They're almost like two sides of the same coin. You can't have forgiveness without compassion. But I think the issue today in our modern world is that because we have no compassion for ourselves, it's impossible to forgive other people. Because if you can't feel at home within yourself, how can you begin to think what's happening in that other person's mind that makes them harm me, you know? Because really, the only way we can forgive someone is to understand that they're suffering, right? You know, that they did this thing that hurt me because they were suffering. But the problem is that we have a difficult time recognizing our own suffering. And so if we can't identify with our own suffering, then there's no way we can begin to think about somebody else's. And so, you know, why? Because somebody, I don't think he's here, but the other day when I left one day, this young man came to me and he was just like, I have so much hatred. You know, what can I do about my hatred? You know. And when people, you know, when we are in difficult situations and people are harming us or we don't understand what's going on or, you know, we're in these very, very difficult karmic things are ripening, you know, and we have no control over our lives. And this is happening a lot in the world today because people are losing their homes. And then when they lose their homes, perhaps it's because one of the partners lost the job, then they can't get a job, and so then they feel, because they can't feel compassion for themselves, they just hate themselves, and that compounds the situation, so then they can't go find a job. I mean, I see this everywhere, you know. So then they turn to drugs or they turn to something else. And so the family just goes down, 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 you know. So what do we do when we're in those situations, you know? What do you do if you're the man, you know, who feels responsible and he suddenly his family has no home, you know? How do you live in that mind? You feel so ashamed, you know? How do you, and there's other situations, you know, there's women who lose their children or, you know, there's so many things, you know, so how do we make peace in this time, you know? So, you know, how was it that Christ was able to endure that pain, you know, and still love everyone? You know, so much so that 2,000 years later, everyone's still, you know, parading around the world with the cross, you know. I mean, that just shows you that is a very, very profound human experience that I think the reason it's so important is because it's very difficult for us to love ourselves and get to that place where we can forgive others. And that's why that symbol is still so important all over the world, you know. So I think what I would like to talk about is, I won't talk, I mean, I don't know how much, I don't know what's going to happen, but is how do we develop compassion for ourselves? And I think, for me, one of the first things that kind of woke me up to the possibility was meeting Lama Tupten Yeshe. Because most of us have at least two selves. You know, there's the self that's our real self that we probably lost touch of when we were about 3 or 4. You know. And then we have the self that we became, first to please our mother and father, and then our school teachers, and then our friends. And I think that it is the lack of communication between those two selves that causes us, you know, that's why we suffer, and why we can't forgive others, and why we can't feel even our own pain. You know, I mean, I think it's taken me a long time to learn to allow myself to feel my feelings, because I learned at such an early age that I wasn't allowed to have my feelings, that I had to be what everybody else wanted me to be, or else I wasn't going to get what I needed, which is I needed love, you know. I needed love from my mother. But most mothers, I mean, there's a lot of really good mothers, and, you know, but most mothers, you know, that like, and it's our cultural thing, you know, they want the child to be what they want, not who the child is, you know. I remember one time, many years ago, I was in Colorado, and everyone was watching the Super Bowl, and there's this little girl who showed up, and she had like on one green sock and one yellow sock, and her hair was a mess, you know. And her mom said that's what she wanted to wear, and she didn't want to brush her hair. And in one way, you think you're spoiling the child, you know. But in another way, I thought, well, how wonderful, you know, to let this little girl express who she is. Because we learn at a very early age it's not safe to be me. Right? So if it's not safe to be me, I'm not going to let anybody else be safe to be them. And that's kind of who we are in this society. You know, that's what the society is all about. That's why it's so messed up. Because people are so out of touch with their real selves and their real needs that they let the advertising people convince them that, you know, buy all this stuff and, you know, get $1 million and then you'll make a connection with that real self. But that never works. Because the only way in to the real self is through feeling your pain. And nobody wants to feel pain. So that's why I like my friend Rob Priest. The name of his book is The Courage to Feel, his book on compassion. Because it takes a lot of courage to want to feel your feelings and do the work it takes to go back and feel all the feelings and forgive all the people that you need to forgive in order to feel your feelings. And I think that for me, why Lama Yeshe was such an important person and why I just kind of dropped everything to follow Lama, and I don't see this in all Tibetan Lamas, but I definitely saw that in Lama Yeshe. There was no difference between the inside person and the outside person. Lama was the most authentic person I ever met. And I think that that was why so many people were attracted to him, because, and we didn't even know why, really, you know. And I think, and also because of that, he let everybody feel okay about themselves. So when you were in Lama's sphere of influence, because he was also a Mahasiddha, so he could, you know, it was really addictive because you felt okay about yourself. And I think that we don't even know we don't feel okay about ourselves, you know. And that's one of the reasons it's kind of difficult to meditate, because it's our false persona that's trying to do the meditation. You know, like I hear everybody, you know, come in here, oh, it's really hard for me to keep my commitments, I can't do this, you know. And it's because we're not meditating from our inner being. And I don't think this was such an issue in Buddha's time. And so, you know, I think the Buddhist teachings are really great, but they don't necessarily work for contemporary society, because we have to be working with our real self first. You know? Otherwise, we just play more games with Buddhism. We're just trying to please somebody. Now we're trying to please Nyingje Rinpoche, you know. Now we're trying to please whatever, you know. And at some point, we have to stop living life to please everybody else and become who we are and find a comfortable place inside of ourselves. And that can take a lot of work. But, and I don't think it ever really ends. But you certainly can get enough of that. And enough healing can occur that you can begin to feel your own feelings. And then if you can feel your own feelings, then you can allow yourself to feel somebody else's feelings. And then compassion can come. Right? Anybody want to say something yet? You agree with me? Okay. So, and I think that this thing about the reason why, there's two reasons why. The first one is we're afraid of what we'll find, you know. And we're also afraid, it's all about fear. You know, we're afraid of who really that person is. And also we're afraid of feeling all the feelings that are real inside there that we have to keep kind of we have to pretend aren't there in order to function, because we do have to function. And I'm not saying that social self, you know, that person out there on the outside is a bad thing. We need, you know, we have to go to work, and we can't just like go to work and break down, oh, I'm feeling all my feelings today, you know. So it's like we need these different types of, you know, the way we relate. But I think the problem is that the inner tender, vulnerable self, there's no place for that, you know. And part of the difficulty is that we have so little time in our world now. I mean, people work. When are you going to have time to sit down and go, oh, I really want to feel my feelings today, you know? It's, I don't know, you know, yeah. Yeah. You know, she just said, I think that's all she has to say. She said, is that right? She just said the problem is we don't take responsibility for ourselves. That's the same thing. We don't take responsibility for ourselves. That's also based on fear. Because if we took responsibility, I don't 100% agree. Also, we take too much responsibility. You know, it's like we're not taking responsibility really for our inner self, but we overcompensate by that. We're going around controlling everything out there and being super responsible. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she says we want to keep the big difference between the outside and the inner side. So what I was hoping maybe we could do is just begin to do some of the meditations, if they'll come when we start meditating. haven't really planned too much. I couldn't make myself plan this. I don't know why. I couldn't make anything come, you know. So, but we can begin to at least work with the idea that we need to have compassion for ourselves. And it's a big topic now. I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh's talking about it. Everybody, you know, it's like the Buddhists are finally, you know, they've been around us long enough to figure out this is our problem, you know. And you can listen to other people, and they have other suggestions. But the main thing is you have to find or create the one that really can work for you, you know. So, and we have to be, and I think that's maybe where the guru comes in, and why we need guru devotion, and these yidam practices and things like that. And for me, like, why I have this connection with Machik Lobdran, because it's the guru that gives us the courage. You know, that's why I was emphasizing the refuge. You know, it's in the refuge where we get the courage to feel. That's why the refuge is first, and then the bodhicitta, and then the emptiness. Because really, you need the refuge and they need the compassion before you can really begin to meditate on emptiness. You know, because we need to be grounded enough to be able to have a strong enough practice to meditate on emptiness. And my personal experience is, without that self-compassion, it's difficult to get there. You know? And without that self-compassion, then how are we ever going to get over these problems that we have? And so the reason that I wanted to do this with you all here, the refuge and compassion, is because for me in my personal life, it's that experience that gives you the actual refuge, that gives you the strength to deal with the situations when the house, the mortgage is foreclosed on, and, you know, the whatever is happening. I mean, it's happened to, I mean, I know quite a few, I have a lot of friends, you know, this happened, it's very real to me. It's not just something I'm talking about. It happened to my sister, you know. So, and also, so that's one. And then another one that people really have trouble with, and I know I'm repeating myself, but it's okay, when you feel harmed, really harmed by somebody. You know, what do you do when you feel someone's really been bad to you? And I know, you know, I mean, the really great thing about the Dharma is we have these wonderful, you know, thought trainings. And of course, we can think, you know, I created the cause for that to happen to me, you know. And the one I really like too is that it's not the person that's hurting me, it's their delusion that's hurting me. So I don't need to be angry at the person. I just need to understand that they have delusions, and my karma is causing their delusions to ripen on me as harm. And that is like so liberating. But even though you could know that intellectually, to actually get that in your heart so you can actually release the anger and the hurt that you feel, then you need this self-compassion to actually make it something more than just something you think about, but still you're shaking inside with fear or anger or whatever, you know. So I think if you can find, I know Sogyal Rinpoche uses the thing, he does his hands like that. I think it goes, I mean, it's been years, 20 years, but he does this thing like this. He goes, coming home, you know. So we need a place where we can come home that isn't dependent on anybody or house or job or anything. There's got to be this inner, I've been talking about this before, this inner guru, this inner refuge. And refuge is the first step, but having compassion for yourself is the second step. So, shall we try meditation, see what comes? So, and I can't emphasize the thing about the guru. And I think that, I've been trying to understand kind of like the science or the system of how these practices work, because I know it's the same in Christianity, and there's something about, and they talk, and the 12 steps is another big one, surrendering to your higher power, right? They talk about that in the 12 steps. I'm just glad that our higher power is a guru, that it's a really qualified being who's overcome all these delusions, so that when we are taking refuge in that higher power, it's something that actually has the capacity to bless us, and has the capacity, like it's like we're getting on that bus, not just the bus to who knows what, but we have a lineage to follow, and we have a long line of beings who have attained enlightenment through this path, and maybe we need to do a little bit extra work because we come from a 2,000 years of violent society, or maybe millions of violent societies, whereas the Tibetans, they didn't have violence. They didn't have violence for 1,000 years. Can you believe that? Can you believe being in a country where for 1,000 years, like their whole thing was practicing thought training instead of let's go to war? So that's what we have to understand when we're looking at our lamas. They're coming from a really different culture, and it's such a privilege and a blessing to be able to have, met with people from a culture like that. Because there's no other one like it on the planet, as far as I can tell, I mean, they had little skirmishes here and there, but they didn't have whole-out war. I mean, it wasn't like, most of you either have, native ancestry or Spanish ancestry or something, but they're all really violent cultures. I mean, you're like 1,000, even 2,000 years ago, little kids and mothers are always waiting, when is the next invader coming? And villages would get burned down, and children would be raped and killed, and so everyone it's like fear is more normal for us than anything else, which is why we have the world that we have. Because when you're completely, your world is pervaded by fear, how are you ever going to feel your little tender feelings inside, Because you're just constantly in a, fight or flight stress thing. Even talking about it makes me get stressed, I can feel my nervous system going, So we're so lucky, to meet with this lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. And even though we have cultural differences, even though, we have to do this, learning to love ourselves thing, still it's worthwhile, because I think that in these degenerate times, if we can just even keep a thread of this alive, and especially if some of us can actually, gain realizations. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if we, if the Western people could actually begin, having the same experiences and being able to teach from their perspective, So I think that another thing that, this is a little bit off what we're talking about, but it's really important to always, I think, be grateful for the lineage that we have, and even though we might not jive with it completely, but the essence of it, we can. And in order for us to be able to really practice it, I hear from everybody, we need to learn to be easygoing with ourselves. And that's what, Lama Yeshe said that all the time, His main message was, you people, he'd say, first of all, you don't know how to enjoy. You really don't know how to enjoy, and you don't know how to take care of yourselves. And, he said, wait a minute, I have to call. He told us, the most important thing is to abandon what he called the self-pity mind, which I'm not sure I would call it the self-pity mind anymore. I think it's more the, that's the poor me, But we definitely have the poor me, but it's almost like what's worse is when we cover up the poor me by trying to be good. You know, because what I hear people, you know, they're trying too hard at their practice. It's like we kind of, we're sort of like, we're either overachieving or underachieving. And I think that's, you know, we either super love ourselves and are total aggrandizing and being proud and bragging and all this stuff, or we're just like, oh, I don't deserve anything. I don't need this. Oh, I don't really need that. You know, I'd love to give this to you. No, I don't need it. You know, the way we are, you know. And so, you know, when Lama gave Chakra Samvara empowerment and the six yogas of Naropa, and which was a big deal. He took a whole week to give the empowerment because he wanted everybody to get it really well. You know what his commitment was? Abandon the self-pity mind. There was no 100,000 of these or got to do this sadhana every day. It was, you know, abandon this false self that causes us to not be authentic within ourselves, you know. He said, you know, you need a healthy ego to practice Dharma. You know, who has a healthy ego? What is a healthy ego? Do we, you know, what is it? Anybody have any ideas? Where's our psychologist? Janet, what's a healthy ego? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Your true inner self, to be in touch with that.
Yeah.
That's inside and genuine in you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I think too, but, you know, so, and there's that thing about, and I want to just say a couple more things. There's these two words that have been coming up a lot, is the vulnerability factor and the shame factor, right? So the whole thing about the courage to feel means the courage to not be right. You know, the courage to be wrong, the courage to make a mistake, the courage to step out there, and, you know, the courage to say, I love you, the courage to say, I don't want to be with you anymore. The courage, you know, it's like the courage to actually let ourselves feel our feelings and to let ourselves be seen for who we really are. And I think that all these practices that we do, if they're done sincerely, will lead us there. But we need to acknowledge and know that that's where we want to go. You know, that not only are we headed for enlightenment, but in order to get enlightenment, I don't think the false self is going to take us to enlightenment. And this was a realization I had in my first long retreat, you know. The one that we pretend to be can't get enlightened because it's not going to resonate with our real energy body. And not only that, it's going to sabotage us. Because there's this thing that we do when we're not in touch with our tender little inner self, we tend to hurt it. You know, we tend to, afraid of letting it come out, so we sabotage it. You know, we set up situations where we might shine, you know. We might really come out, you know, but because of that fear, we cut it off. Right? So how do we get that courage? And sometimes, if it's a really bad situation, you know, it's probably good to be with somebody and talk, like have a therapist, or, you know, when you don't have the... I wrote that down. I was asking myself, what do I say? Oh, when you're too afraid to feel your feelings, you know, when it's really overwhelming, I think that's when. You know, when it's something you really can't handle with your friends, or, you know, then it's good to go to a professional, because that's what they're trained to do. You know. But, you know, Lama's book, maybe you've all seen Lama Yeshe's book, Becoming Your Own Therapist, Becoming Your Own Psychotherapist. I mean, I think he even though he could see our flaws and things, he really believed in us. And that was the other thing, you know, he really believed that we could heal ourselves and we could attain enlightenment and we could do these things, you know. Because we may be emotionally wounded, but we're really smart. And so if we're serious about these things, then we can use our intelligence to heal ourselves. Right? So it's already 3. Let's take a little break and come back, and then we'll do a meditation, okay? Not a whole half-hour break, just like a 15-minute break. Is that okay? Okay. Just get up and walk around a little bit so that you're fresh. So I'm sorry if I confused everyone. We're going to have a half-hour like coffee talking break after this meditation. I just thought that after that talk, it might be good to get up before we meditate. Okay? So not everyone's back. So let's just start to just quietly get yourself ready for meditation while we wait for them to come back. So as before, we begin the meditation by coming home into the body. Becoming aware of the toes and the feet, the ankles, calf muscles, the knees, the thighs, feeling where the thighs connect to the pelvis, feeling your pelvic bones on your cushion. Becoming aware of your belly, your breathing in the belly. Being aware of your rib cage, the lower back. And as you breathe into the belly, you also breathe into the lower back, right at the base of the ribs. And allow that to expand a little bit. And then you let the breath slowly fill up your whole rib cage, expanding it in the back and the front, into the solar plexus area, so that you feel your body getting bigger. Each time you breathe, the breath goes into the belly and begins to expand the whole of your torso, into the lower back, into the solar plexus, up under the ribs, the breasts, into the armpits, up under the collarbones. Feeling your body getting bigger, and your spine expanding. And then you allow the feeling of the breathing, as you're breathing in, it all goes up through your neck, that part of your spine, right up to the crown of your head. And as you're watching your breath going in and out, you also pay attention and allow the breathing to feel like it's going through into your skull and your brain. Becoming aware of your whole head and the inside of your head. Your eyebrows and your eyes, your ears. Allowing your jaw to relax. Noticing the tongue on the roof of the mouth. The top of the mouth at the back expanding. Kind of a sense of relaxation coming with the breathing. And exhaling, and then begin becoming aware of the shoulders and the arms and the elbows and the forearms, the hands, the fingers, the fingertips. You become aware of your whole body. Think of it being like a hollow body. If you like, you can have the little smile on your face. Tends to brighten up the nervous system. Thinking of your whole body as a hollow body. And maybe even, if you can, think back to a time when you were genuinely happy. Maybe remember when you were maybe 5 or 6 years old and playing and nobody cared and you didn't really care, and just very carefree, happy experience. try to cultivate an experience of awareness, but without judgment. Just going to be watching the breath going in, the breath going out. But when we notice that our minds are wandering and we bring our mind back to the breath going in and going out, we do it in a very playful way, like a little child playing, not with no judgment of wrong or right. Just experience. And as you're breathing and feeling, you might not feel anything, but if you are feeling something, just allow the feelings, the energy to go wherever it needs to go. You don't need to control it or move it, or the only thing you need to do is keep your body upright and being aware of the breath going in and the breath going out of a hollow body. And if you can, somewhat light, happy feeling. And if not, doesn't matter. Just be with whatever feeling is there. If it's tight, if it's dark, if it's sad, just let it be there. No need to push it away. No need to accept it. Or not, well, we are accepting it, but no need to grasp onto it or follow it. Just accept it for what it is. And let that be good enough. Wherever we are is good enough. In fact, it's great. And we're all here because we want happiness and we don't want suffering. We're all here because we want all beings to have happiness and not have suffering. And because of our experience, and because of the teaching, but mostly because of our experience in the example of our teachers, we have some reason to believe that by doing these meditation practices, we can become more happy, less suffering, and perhaps we can also help others to have more happiness and less suffering. It's as simple as that. We've been told of this abstract idea, or maybe it's a very concrete idea, that there's actually a state of being, a state of awareness, that is totally beyond any suffering, any boredom, any emotional affliction, any sickness, a state that's actually is all-knowing, can see tomorrow, can see karma, a state that is so beyond control, there is no need for control because there is no affliction or desire to control. There is no need to censor that thought, or censor the activity, because all the activities manifest perfectly virtuous for all beings. We've heard of this state. And through our study and our experience, we believe that is possible. And we are told it's through developing compassion, wisdom, skillful means, following the 6 perfections. These kinds of practices can help us relieve our own suffering and that of others. And so we're here, learning, studying, being together, helping each other. So, having some reason to believe this sort of reasonable faith, when we're studying, when we're learning these things, that is in effect taking refuge, you know. We're looking for a refuge, we're looking for the way, we're looking for the path, you know. Buddha taught us about, this is so simple but so profound, you know, the truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path. There is actually, you know, a path to the cessation of suffering. And the cause of suffering, what Buddha taught, is actually so simple, you know. It's just karma. It's our ignorance of karma. It's our ignorance grasping an inherent existence. Causes us to feel separate from the true nature of reality, which then brings on fear, because if I'm separate, then I want to get reconnected, you know. Because really, I think what makes human beings happy is a feeling of connection. And temporarily, it's a connection to others, but ultimately, it's a connection to our true nature, which is emptiness. And I think what I'm trying to share is that in order to feel connected to others and eventually connected to emptiness, we need to connect with ourselves. And by taking refuge, which is a form of becoming connected, it's becoming connected with Buddha's lineage, with the teachings of Buddha, with the teacher that teaches us, and with our community. So taking refuge is actually a form of feeling connected. And connected to the possibility of the cessation of suffering. When we take refuge, it's no longer an abstract idea. We're actually holding the mental thread that is the path, that is the connecting experience that takes us to total cessation and enlightenment. So based on this, we have reasoned faith and believing faith, clear faith, in these teachings that tell us that by taking refuge is the first step. So we visualize the Guru, and in his heart is the Buddha, and in his heart is Vajradhara, And we think of the Buddha as also holding representative of the teachings as well. So we can also, with this simple object of refuge, we can also be taking refuge in the teachings and in the Sangha. So maybe just imagine what it would be like to experience total cessation and the bliss that comes when we're no longer grasping at the true existence of I. Because that is the ultimate refuge. If we can imagine it, we can become it. So, with the representations of method on the right and wisdom on the left, and if it works to have your father and mother, great, but if not, that's okay. And surrounded by all the sentient beings, then with a really heartfelt wish to just let go of this burden of having these the 5 contaminated aggregates controlled by delusion and karma, which might be a little bit abstract now. So you can just think of the burden that you feel, just the burden of having this ego, the burden of these problems, and wanting to solve them, turn away from them, let go of them, transcend them. We take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I think you all know the Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaya, from the Lama Chopa. So we'll do that together, okay? Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya. So then, like we did last weekend, we can visualize the white nectars and rays pouring into our bodies. If you would like, you can do it into the crown, throat, and heart chakras. And that of all sentient beings, purifying them of all the afflictive emotions and all of the unbalanced winds that cause the diseases. And all of the past karmas that are ripening in the conditions that make our lives difficult. Just imagine. And you can be very specific, you know, if you have illness, if you have karmic situations that are very difficult, if there's a lot of mental afflictions going on. Think about those things. Or do it for someone else. And visualize it going into them. And feel your bodies and their bodies becoming very clear, hollow, clear like a crystal, radiating the white light. And just have some believing imagination that it's actually just as you imagine, you know, completely purified. And then again from the Guru, Buddha, Vajradhara, nectars and rays coming from his 3 places or her 3 places, and going into yours and those of all sentient beings, and this time it's the yellow nectars and rays. And they bring all the realizations of the path. In particular, though, we're going to be requesting the realization of opening ourselves to our vulnerable self and learning to accept and love and have compassion for I want to say our true nature, but I don't mean our empty nature. I mean the relatively existent true person. So we're going to be requesting help to uncover all of the false ways that we hide from ourselves, or all of the ways that we feel shame about ourselves, how we work too hard, how how we don't like things about ourselves. We're requesting to become comfortable with who we are. And not only become comfortable with who we are, but actually rejoice in who we are. It's okay to be the unique personality that I am. Or maybe I don't even know my personality. Maybe what I'm requesting is to find out, what do I really feel and like and want, and maybe I don't even know. So I'm requesting to be comfortable, sitting still, being with myself. And so we visualize, and not because not just for myself, but so that I can allow others to feel comfortable within themselves, so that we can begin to have honest communication and love and forgiveness and compassion, and eventually grow ourselves into a Buddha. So the nectars and rays of the Buddha come pouring into us, giving us the confidence that we need to feel our feelings, and be ourselves, and forgive ourselves for all the things that make us feel ashamed of ourselves. All the things that we hide from others and hide from ourselves. All of our delusions. We have to recognize them before we can purify them. So, coming from the Buddhas is the confidence, the love, the assurity, the certainty, I guess, that it is possible to feel at home with me and to love me as imperfect and messed up as I am. So, we still have a hollow body, and we're still breathing, but we're breathing in this light of confidence and care and courage coming from the gurus who have that. Because we want to have that too, so we can give it to others. So if you like, you can think, I'm breathing in confidence, care, love, acceptance, forgiveness from the Guru, the unconditional love that comes from the Guru that I give to myself. And as I breathe in, I completely fill myself up with that, even if it's just like you can't really believe it, but just pretend, I can give that to myself. And as I breathe out, because my body is hollow, it's going out, this golden light is going out to all sentient beings and giving it to them as well, and filling the universe with it. And you can think of particular people who need that, but you can also just give it out. We have to be like an actor, Just pretend we have it. Pretend we're feeling it. Imagine it. Remember that the Guru loves you just as you are. And then think that now that I've established myself with unconditional love and acceptance, then I'm able to realize all the stages of the path. Guru devotion, perfect human rebirth, death and impermanence. I'm able to much better contemplate the sufferings of samsara. Refuge becomes more real, teachings on karma, 12 links. All the teachings on compassion, wisdom, and then our tantric practice. We're able to visualize ourselves as a deity. We're able to work at a pace in our practice that suits who we are. We're not working too hard. We're not late. We're not working too little. because we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we're happy to practice. We know when to stop. We know when we're tired, it's okay to just do a quick practice today because I'm tired. I'm not going to push myself. So slowly, because we have care for ourselves, we're able to cultivate our practice. And in our daily lives, we're able to have more patience with others, more generosity with others. We're able to not harm others so much. We have more joy in our lives. And especially, we're able to concentrate more. Because we're not fighting ourselves anymore. There's no more battle inside going on. It's sitting down to meditate is going home. It's peaceful. It's safe. There's love there. It's nice to get it other places, but I can get it just right here, inside my little heart, when I take refuge. My mind becomes one with the Guru's mind. In all ways, not just becoming the deity, not just meditating on emptiness, not just meditating on compassion, but also having a stable, healthy relationship with myself. So then the Guru, understanding that this is, great, is really happy. So the Guru becomes ready to enter the crown of our head, and we request one last time, please Guru, come and sit on the crown of my head, and come and sit in my heart, and remain with me and guide me until enlightenment, and allow me to see my mind one with the Guru's mind, not only in the relative sense, but in the ultimate sense. May I create the cause to experience the union of great bliss and emptiness, so that I too can lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. So then the Guru dissolves from the top below into the Buddha, who dissolves into Vajradhara, who becomes very, very small, about the size of a sesame seed, and comes to the crown of the head, and we imagine that we feel great joy as this essence of Buddha nature, loving kindness, emptiness, union of inseparable bliss and emptiness, dissolves, not dissolves, but comes down, purifying the crown chakra, going down into the throat, purifying the throat chakra, and comes and rests in the center of the subtle drop in the center of the heart. And our bodies are pervaded with a feeling of warmth and kindness and love and protectedness, care, safety, joy, no worries. if this is a difficult thing to do, then either think of someone that you do really love and think about them enough that you generate that experience of love and care, maybe it's your children or what, and then give it to yourself. Or maybe you need to think about yourself as a little child, and you're holding your little child in your arms and comforting yourself that way. But find some way to just really allow yourself to give care and love to you. A feeling. It can't be an intellectual. It has to be a feeling of care and love. So find some way to make that happen and then give it to yourself. So as you breathe in all the good feelings that you need for yourself. And as you breathe out, you give it to yourself and give it to all sentient beings. And as you breathe in and you give it to yourself, you imagine that all of your shame and self-hatred and fears and worries are just dissolving by the fact that you now, I don't want to say use the word commitment, but now you have a permission to love yourself, to care for yourself, to have compassion for yourself. So try to keep it steady with the breath, breathing in, giving yourself love and compassion, destroying, or not destroying, but that kind of melts the sense of insecurity and fear, vulnerability, and turns it into a strength, knowing that we're always going to have a certain sense of vulnerability and fear. But if we allow ourselves to feel the love, then that's more powerful. So breathing in, feeling love, safety, and breathing out, giving it to yourself and others. And we'll just sit just a few more minutes doing that. So if you need to, move your knees or something, that's okay, but just work with this just a little bit more. relax the meditation. And dedicate the merits that if there is any benefit, whatever benefit from taking refuge and giving compassion for ourselves so we can give it to others and eventually become a Buddha for all sentient beings. We dedicate this that we actually do attain enlightenment for all sentient beings and that we can actually develop the real bodhicitta, the compassion that cares so much for all sentient beings that we will completely abandon the meaningless affairs of this life and devote our lives single-pointedly to attaining all the realizations of the path and becoming a Buddha. And then taking just a moment to think this I that we've been giving care and love to, that although it appears to exist conventionally, ultimately, if we look for it, it can't be found in the body, outside the body, anywhere in the mind, outside the mind. That this I is merely a label on the basis of mind and body. Because there's such a thing as memory, all these different moments of mine are strung together like beads on a rosary. And because of that, we experience something that we call I. And on the basis of this come all these thoughts we have about ourselves, good, bad, ugly, beautiful. If we really check, there's just thoughts arising in the space of mind. But a real I that is inherently ugly, bad, good, beautiful, doesn't exist at all. Can't be found anywhere. This is actually liberating, not meant to frighten, but to liberate. So the merely labeled I dedicates the merely labeled merit to emptiness, which is also merely labeled phenomena. To enlightenment, the merely labeled phenomena, which is also empty when we look for it. So just remember when we're having these difficult experiences that they're impermanent, they'll pass. We just have to hang in there, give ourselves lots of care and love, and remember that it's just like a dream. So, let's take a break, huh? So take your merely labeled self and go have some merely labeled coffee and Enjoy. So, we'll come back around, I don't know, 4:45. Is that right? 20 to 5, something like that? 20 to 5?